Hello, motivators. It is Clair Em Motivators here, back with your weekly dose of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement. And this week, we are doing another highly requested topic. We're going to start a series about healthy relationships, and we're going to kick the series off with healthy relationships between couples. We know it's 2020, and y'all have been in quarantine together since March, and y'all probably getting on each other's last nerve. And so we are here, your favorite motivators, to talk about ways that you can handle the conflict that arises between couples. Before we do that, I would like to acknowledge that the day that this video goes up, it'll be Chris's birthday.
Yay!
So happy birthday to Chris.
Happy birthday.
And we'll talk about what's motivating us through the week at the end. I know you all are used to that. But because we are so excited about this topic, we wanted to jump right in. And so, like I said, I know that it's quarantine and people are just kind of going at it. And so we wanted to talk to y'all today about the experiences that we've had as couples where we almost broke up over some petty stuff. And Nikki and G, I love this story that y'all share. I think it's hilarious. I'm sure living it wasn't funny, but looking back on it, it's funny to me. So can y'all tell them about the time y'all almost broke up over some to-go food?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you gonna start it off? You gonna let me
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well then he passed the torch, so I'll start it off. So this was very early in our relationship.
We're gonna see if she gets the story right.
We probably had been dating for just a few months or so, 6 months. It was early relationship, at least within the first year of the relationship. Gavino and he took me out to eat to Red Lobster. I know, and I didn't eat all my food, so I had a to-go plate. So we get ready to leave. We're going out hand in hand. We're all booed up, and we get to the car, and Gavino hops the trunk, and he says, "Okay, you can go ahead and put your food in the trunk." Now, pause. Nobody has ever told me in my entire life to put the food in the trunk, like where you put your spare tire. So right. I'm like, what? Put my food in the trunk. So we're not booed up no more. I'm kind of looking at him like he has two heads. My hand is no longer in his hand. My hand is now on my hip, and my neck is starting to get to rolling because I'm thinking he's just playing. And I was like, put my food.
But I wasn't though.
No, he was dead dang serious. Put my food in the trunk. He was like, yes, that's Red Lobster. He was like, you're gonna have my car all smelling
like
bad.
Fish,
you know, for everybody who knows him, you're gonna laugh because he's very meticulous. He likes his car. It's clean. He's very meticulous. And so he said, no, I can't put this in the trunk because this was going to smell up his car.
You can't put it in the car. You have to put it in the trunk.
I have to put it in the trunk. Can't put it in the car because it's gonna stink up the car. But if it stinks up the trunk, that's fine. He said seafood stinks, so I can't put it in the car. So our music stops, and he tells me this twice. So I'm like, I think this man is serious. He really is telling me to put my food in the trunk. And he says you cannot. So we stood outside of in that parking lot of Red Lobster for a good at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I mean, like we were like,
yeah, it was really heated. Really heated. Now, she didn't get the story right. She didn't get the story right like I knew she wouldn't. But that's why I want to let her go first. You know, right. Now, she got the story partially right. So here's how it went down. So we did go to Red Lobster, all right? We went to Red Lobster, and that Red Lobster has actually been in our family. It's like a traditional thing that we went to that Red Lobster before we even had our children. And it's got so many stories, celebrations there at that particular Red Lobster. But we went, and that particular day, I knew we were going to go on a date. Again, it was within the first year of our dating. So, you know, I wanted to impress her. I'm dressed nice, but I had washed my car, okay? I had washed my car. Now, I bought this car on my own, and I was very proud of it. It was a 2003 Chevy Impala, and I had bought, it wasn't brand new when I bought it. It was brand new to me, though. So it was brand new. So I put some 20s on it. The car was black. The rims were black. Had a nice stainless polished lip on the rim. So, you know, it was nice, man. It was really nice. It was clean outside and clean on the inside. Smelling good and everything, right? Because I'm going on a date with my beautiful girl, right? So I wanted to impress. So Of course, we go eat. The date was wonderful, right? They had no hiccups, no problems, no nothing. You know, I'm flossed, the car is flossing, it's clean, everything's smelling good, I'm smelling good, the car smelling good, date smelling good. We go eat, and then we bring this smelly food back outside, right? So I'm like, oh man. I popped the trunk. You know, I popped the trunk. I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think it was a big problem. I didn't think it was an issue. But again, this is in our first year of dating, so we're still getting to know each other then, right? So I didn't know her pet peeves. She didn't know my pet peeves. So I told her to put the food in the trunk. You know,
I didn't even know that was a pet peeve because I had never been told. I didn't even know. So that's the first time it ever happened.
Again, this was a nice car to me. Okay, it was a nice car to me. So the inside was nice. I just gave you the whole rundown. So I popped the trunk, and she looked at me like I just said something ugly about her mama or something. You know, I'm like, yo, put the food in the trunk. She's like, are you serious right now? I'm like, and I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, like I was pretty stern, you know, pretty serious. So I said, yes. I said, can you please put the food in the trunk? She's like, why do I take my takeout and put it in the trunk?
Where you keep the spare tire.
Yeah, and I'm like, because it smells. It's seafood. It's gonna smell like seafood in my car. I just washed this car on the inside and everything.
So when Anika, you said it got heated outside, were y'all like yelling? Like what set the scene? What was this argument like?
So it was at night, and you know how we got sense enough not to embarrass ourselves. So we're not necessarily yelling, but you can tell by body language that they're probably not having the best of conversation. You know how your mom talks to you through gritted teeth?
Yeah.
So outside, we're trying to act civilized. We don't want to be uncivilized, but we are ticked off. So we are close to each other, and we are talking, and I get animated when I get mad. So like my hands are going everywhere, and my head is going everywhere, and Davino's just kind of sitting there. So
I'm dumbfounded. I thought me saying put the food in the trunk was, you know,
we were not yelling, but we were talking through our teeth, and like my vein was popping out of my neck and in my forehead. So you can tell walking by that whatever we were talking about, we were not having a good conversation.
How did it end, or did it? Y'all still fighting over this, or what? Like,
you know, the funny thing is, did I put the food in the trunk?
Right.
First of all, nowadays
I can't remember.
She don't really get no takeout. My wife is slim and trim, but fine. But she sure does eat all the food these days. And so when she does get the takeout, she leaves it on the table.
Like I work at it least.
So I ain't got to fight about the takeout.
So that's not an issue anymore.
Did I put it in the trunk?
You know, I think you put the food in the car.
But you just had an attitude?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of the night
was done. It was shot.
Done. I think I don't know what we had planned, but there was no nightcap, no night talk,
there wasn't nothing.
He took me home, and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna call him back no more. Like I was that mad, I was that ticked off. But I think I ended up putting the food in the car, in the back seat or something.
No, she put it in the front seat. She put the food in the front seat at the floorboard. I'm like, golly, you know, and of course it bothered me, right? It bothered me, but it I'm sitting there like, man, I'm not about to go back and forth with you anymore over food that I asked to put in the trunk. Clearly, you don't respect my beliefs or my feelings because you brought the food in the car,
right?
You know.
So was you thinking you're gonna break up with her too? So she like, I'm about to break up with him over this to-go thing, and you like, I'm about to break up with her because she don't listen.
Yeah,
no respect. No respect. She probably didn't even eat that food.
I probably put it in the trash. I was so mad. I don't even remember about the food. That's how silly the fight is now, because you can't even remember the outcome of it. But
at the time, it's everything.
Oh, at the time, enough for us to remember. We've been married for 13 years, together for 16 years. And so that was enough 16 years later for us to vividly recall being in the parking lot at Red Lobster about to strangle each other because I didn't want to put my food in the trunk.
Yeah, but you know, again, it was in the early stages of the relationship where we're still getting to know one another, still learning each other, if you will.
Right. So I just wanted to address this because it's kind of awkward. Chris did not break up with me. He left because he
got upset.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? Just bringing back memories. I'm out. Our kids came up to the door, and so he went to go figure out how they escaped from them when they're watching TV, but I think he's back. So the question that I have for y'all said, okay, you don't really know how it ended, but I think she won because the food ended up in the car. But I digress. That's not important. Would y'all today, 13 years later, or having been married for 13 years, would y'all have handled that situation any differently?
So funny enough, we have an SUV, and I gladly put my food in the trunk because it doesn't even matter. It's all in the
Because
same
it's still in the
car.
car?
It's still
So
in
that's
the
a
car.
compromise, I guess. You put it in the trunk, but it's still in the car because
In the car.
it's an SUV.
But you know what though? At the time, like 16 years ago, like I said, that's the first time I think I had ever encountered some putting our food in the trunk. And to me, I think of a trunk as being dirty, and it probably was clean.
It was
I think
clean. It was
I
clean.
think of the trunk being dirty.
You just bought the car.
But
Yeah.
but I will say that today me is not as a big deal. Like, we got bigger fish to fry than me
Right.
putting my food in the trunk.
Right.
So today me, the food, I don't care. The food, you put it in the trunk if you want. I just
So-
put it in there. It doesn't even matter.
So to piggyback off what Anika's saying, funny thing is like, you asked me would I have done it any differently, or asked us if we would have done it any differently. Then no, I wouldn't have done it any differently. It would have still went down the way it went down because I spent a lot of time cleaning that car.
Okay. We got it.
Okay, but
Oh my
today, yeah, it would have definitely been different, and it is different because one, we have an SUV and I have a truck, so there is no trunk theoretically. But now it's so funny because during, we're in this COVID time. Like, we still do our Friday out to eat things, but we go and pick up the food and bring it home. So I put it in the back seat. I almost put the seatbelt on it because when I come home, I don't want my food to be all turned around. So it's funny how times change.
Yes.
You mature. What was important then is not as important now.
Right.
And the car is not as clean today as it was 16 years ago.
That's-
Well, we got two.
Because you got kids.
Like,
Right.
I don't
Right.
I don't need to
Kids
throw
and
them under
like-
the bus, but the car got stuff everywhere, so it's not as clean as it was back then.
Right. That's funny. So for us, you want me to go
You
first?
can start it
Okay,
off.
let me tell you what
I'll
really
chime
happened.
in.
And then he's gonna come through probably with some lies, but that's okay. We'll address it as it comes up.
We'll let you be the judge.
So ours was over a snow cone, like literally over a snow cone. And this is just one of many examples, but this is the one that we laugh about the most. So we had plans like later on that night. He was gonna take me to his friend's house to meet his friend's parents. And his friend's parents are like, the parents that you look at them like your parents too. So they're really close to him. And when we first started dating, even now, and this was the same as y'all, it's probably within like the first 6 months of us being together. When I say things out loud, I can be like, oh, I want a snow cone, or like, oh, I want whatever. He'll get it. Like, that's just who he is. So if I say I want something, he's gonna make it happen. Even if I'm not necessarily asking for it, like, he's gonna make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so this particular day, I was like, I want a snow cone. And so he's like, okay, rearranged his day and was like, well, we can drive by your favorite snow cone place and I'll get you a snow cone. So I'm
Right
like,
on.
yeah, I like this dude. So we go get the snow cone. Of course, I get the reddest red, like tiger's blood mixed with tutti frutti plus cherry, like red. And so I'm eating my snow cone, right? We get back to my mom's house. I'm like doing my little dance, eating my snow cone. I'm gonna show y'all what I was doing. So I got the spoon and I'm like scooping it up, eating it off the spoon. And he goes, okay, well, we only have like a few hours before we have to go over to meet my friend's parents. And so can you like not get it all over your mouth and like not get it on your tongue so your tongue and your mouth won't be red when you go meet my friend's parents? And I'm like, excuse you? And then this is what really made me mad. He was like, let me show you how to eat it, right? He takes my spoon and he's like, do your mouth like this. I ain't gonna do it with the pen because it's gonna look kind of weird. But he is like, do your mouth like this and just kind of slide it off the spoon. So he gives me a demonstration of how he's supposed to eat the snow cone that he just got for me. And so I'm like, wait, it ain't your turn yet. It's not your turn yet.
Right.
Remember we said we fought, we've been married for a long time. We don't have these issues no more, right?
Right.
Okay, let me finish. So he's like, yeah, I want you to just slide it off like this so it don't get on your mouth and your lips. And I was like, well, I could just brush my teeth. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. And in my mind, you just said I look dumb. You just called me ugly. You just said you don't want me to meet your friend's parents no more. You don't want to be with me no more. Like all of that is what went through my mind. And
you got all of that.
All of that happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the biggest one for me was like, if you didn't want me to eat the snow cone, then why did you buy it? Like, why did you rearrange our whole route for this day to drive by this snow cone place if you was gonna have an issue with my mouth being red?
All right.
Right?
So,
Wait, whoa, let me finish. Let me finish. No,
Let me
it's
go.
your turn.
Let me just chime in for a second. Let me just chime in for a
No, let me
second.
finish. I just got one more piece.
Okay, finish your piece.
So that happens. We go, by then we mad, right? So I don't know if I brush my teeth or not, or if I just put some lipstick on over it or what. But we end up going to his friend's house, and then we go like do fireworks or something after, like group activities. And he and I are not talking to each other like at all. I don't know if you ever been around a couple that's like, they're not, And so we were like, hi, how are you? And like the whole night, and this started at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and we was popping fireworks at midnight, and we still wasn't talking to each other.
So first, let me. She didn't get everything. I guess she didn't paint the full picture.
Okay.
So let me go back and clarify. So one, with the snow cone. So first off, we go to this particular snow cone place. This was the first time that she purchased the reddest of red snow cones. She would usually get something that's a little bit lighter that wouldn't show up on her face like
a peach or something.
Right.
You should have put a coconut. I would
Clear.
like.
Right.
But then two, the way she was eating the snow cone, I mean, it was all over her face. Like, we got a baby now. Like, picture like the baby eating the snow cone. Like, it was all over her face, in her teeth, everywhere. And so, like, I'm looking at her like, all right, so
you gonna clean that up?
so, this is the first time that you meet, some people. You're gonna go over there like that, and it was just a whole situation.
But it wasn't like 4. We didn't have to be there till 6. I had 2 hours to pull it back together.
At that particular moment, I didn't know what her plan was. All I know is she had all this red. It was everywhere.
You're making me sound like a barbarian.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that snow cone was really good because it was like all over her face, and so I'm literally thinking, and I wasn't trying to, kind of like you, when she kind of responded, I'm kind of
taken back.
I'm confused.
Yeah, like what's the problem?
I'm confused because I'm literally just like, hey, we are going over to meet some people that you never met before.
And do you see your face?
Right. I really don't want, that's not the picture that I wanted to paint.
Okay, but
the first time you meet somebody, first impressions.
And
so hold on, wait a minute. So then I'm like, okay, hey, I'm really trying to figure out a solution, right? And I'm saying, hey, with the whole like demonstration, because I'm sitting there eating on a snow cone too, but it's not getting all over my face. I'm not saying that one is right, one is wrong. I'm like, in this particular situation, we're going somewhere right after this. She says it's in a few hours, but hey, we were on our way. And I'm like, hey, how about we try to do it neatly, I guess. And so, and that was the place that I was coming from. I really wasn't trying to judge. I wasn't trying to I wasn't trying to say, anything about her in that snow cone situation. And then to the fact that you're like, okay, why'd you buy it? I'm like, okay, well, I when I bought it, I never in my mind thought it was gonna be all over your face. I'm sorry.
Is it on me? Is it on me now?
Yeah, it's on you now.
Okay, so let me tell y'all, in addition to the other stuff that went through my head, and Nikki, this may be the same for you, but it was 2 things. It was one, this one's not the same for you. This one was just for us. But in my mind, I'm like, you should know me well enough to know that I wouldn't go nowhere looking crazy. Like you were attracted to me for a specific reason. You ain't never seen me go nowhere looking crazy, ever. And so in my mind, I'm like, you should trust me enough to know that I wouldn't do that. Now, today, I would have just said that. Like, babe, have you ever seen me go somewhere without a full beat? No. Like, I know how to carry myself. I don't need instructions. But the other thing was, and this is something that we learned that I already knew that I think he's realized, I really don't like being told what to do.
Mhm.
Like just telling
Yeah,
me.
because I could have told you that. I could have saved you some time and told you that.
Oh, you knew that already?
Well, we grew up in the
Mhm.
same house.
Yeah. I mean,
I hate it. I do not like for people to just tell me what to do. Like, at least make me think it was my idea, or just let me go over there and not over to their house because I wouldn't have done that. But like, if I'm doing something and you think I'm not doing it right, in my mind, just let me do it. Like, I'm not affecting you. I'm not bothering you. I'm over here minding my business. If I'm doing it wrong, just leave me alone. Or ain't no or, just leave me alone.
Well, it actually sounds, the way Chris tells the story, it actually sounds like he more or less suggested to either this way. He didn't sound like he told you to do it
But
this
the
way.
fact that he even suggested it is what the problem is.
Right.
I'm just saying, let me eat.
And
Let
that's
me
the
eat how I
thing.
eat.
I thought that I was coming, correct. Now I get that what I was saying, that even the suggestion, like it made her
You
feel
was
a
never
certain
gonna
way.
win.
But I thought that at that particular moment, I'm like, I'm coming to her correct. I was polite about it, and I even tried to like, hey, I'm not trying to judge, but like here is what the suggestion is. And two, like
So stupid.
I know, the feelings like
and so and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go meet some people that that are close to me, and it's the first impression, and that's really all that was going through my
But
mind.
I wouldn't go over there looking like that.
Man, at that particular time, I wasn't thinking about that,
Okay.
and I was
so
like,
let
all
me
I
ask
see
you a
is this.
question. So today, let's say right before she came on camera and she was eating that snow cone, like would you suggest the same thing, or have you learned anything different from the time y'all been together? Just let her come on with snow cone on her face.
I've learned. Okay, yes, like she's not gonna go anywhere just looking any type of way. So
Right.
I have taken a step back in that regard. But I think we've also gotten to the point in our marriage where we're able to have these conversations and it not turn the conversation don't go left.
And I don't see it as him telling me what to do
Right.
anymore. Like
Right.
he could literally come up to me and be like, "Hey, don't eat it like that," and I take it as he's looking out for me. I don't look
Right.
at it like he's just trying to control me and tell me what to do.
And that was the biggest source of like that turned into an argument, and that was basically the underlying issue. Like she thought like I'm trying to tell her what to do, and I'm sitting there like I'm not like
I'm trying to look out for
I'm
you.
just trying to look out for you, and I'm so confused by that, and so that's really where the conflict like arose in that particular argument. But we've grown, and now that we're here, we've been married for so many years. We've been together. Like the situation is just totally different.
In
Yeah.
terms of tools, because the picture that's being painted, we're out here like, oh, we're loving relationship coaches, but like this how we act. Like, no, since then we had only known each other for a very short amount of time. We were
Right.
very young, we were like 20 years old.
Mhm.
And since then we've been to counseling together. We're active in our church marriage ministry. We're trained on helping other couples resolve conflict and stuff like that. So the point of the video was to share with all the people watching that it's not just you.
Right.
One thing that really grinds my gears, I don't know if y'all have ever seen couples that are like, oh, we don't argue. Like, oh, no,
Oh,
best
man.
friends. Like, we never
Oh,
argue. I really
yeah,
want to pull them aside and give them a free session right then and there. Be like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Conflict is going to happen.
Right.
So the reason for us sharing these stories with you is for nothing else to share that we, started at the bottom. Now we're here. Right. We've grown. We know each other. There are tips that we know now that we would have utilized back then. We all love each other so much we dressed alike for this video. So Chris walks in the room and he's wearing the same color sweater as me. These two come on camera, both wearing Dallas Cowboys gear. So we were so in love and so in sync that we ended up wearing the same outfit for the "We Almost Broke Up" video.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share some tips. Y'all know I'm a list person. And so I wrote out some tips that we would like to offer to couples out there in quarantine that are fighting over snow cones and to-go food. It's okay. Get through it. And we're going to give y'all some tips to help y'all get through those situations. And y'all can chime in on the tips if y'all have anything to add. So the first one that I have is what we kind of addressed, is that conflict is a part of every relationship. Every couple, every relationship, period. Parents, siblings, children, life, friends, whatever it is, conflict is a part of every relationship. And you have to accept that. And the thing that you have to know is that there is healthy conflict and there's unhealthy conflict. And you can learn tools to have healthy conflict. So in moments like this over snow cones and to-go food, you have the skills that you need to resolve those. Would y'all agree with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Okay, the next one that we have is to create rules for how you and your partner are going to deal with conflict, right? And so you set the framework in the guidelines so that both people know how we're going to approach situations when we are not on the same page. So, for example, for us, no yelling, no cursing, and no involving other people.
Mhm.
And so Chris and I don't really curse. And so if we're in a situation where we're having a conversation and one of us starts to curse, that's not us, right? That may be different for you guys because, you know, I don't know about Nikki, but Gavino, I know you curse. No judgment, just saying. And so it may not be as offensive to her because she's used to hearing you curse. Whereas if he cursed at me, that's not, you don't curse at her. I'm not saying that. But if he just curses in a sentence, that's startling to me because he doesn't talk like that.
Mhm.
And so those are the rules that we have. And so for whatever couple, it's just setting, look, if we get raised voices, somebody has to say, like, hey, remember, we don't do that. Like, lower your voice. We can talk. I know you're passionate. I know your hand on your hip and your neck moving. But just remember, you know, we've decided that we're not gonna to yell at each other.
Yeah.
Are you about to add something?
Yeah, I just said on the rule, I think one rule that we've set that I think it's been really important to me, and I think for those that have kids, something to think about is like if, you know, you're going to have arguments, you're going to bicker in front of your kids. It's going to happen because we're all together.
Because we live together.
Because we live together. And the rule that we set is, you know, if we have an argument in front of our kids, we want them to see us make up as well. And so that's basically our rule. Like if we fight and it just so happen to be in front of our kids in terms of an argument, we want them to see the makeup as well.
And I just want to add, because when you say words like fight and argue, those things have different meanings for different people.
Right.
When we say argue or fight, we are literally talking about having a conversation that may get heated. No
Right.
one's cursing,
Like
no
bickering.
one's yelling, we're not throwing things. And so if that's happening in front of at all, but especially in front of children, that's a no-go.
Right.
Don't do that. And so when he says when you argue or fight in front of your kids, for us, that literally means, you know, normally I'm happy, go lucky and smiling, but now my daughter sees me stern,
Right.
or, you know, maybe hear him using a tone that he wouldn't normally use.
Right. Like bickering.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the importance for that is not only do we do that, but we make up in front of them so that they see how couples handle conflict. We don't try to make it seem like, you know, they're going to grow up and be somebody's spouse one day. We don't want them to have a false picture of what marriage is. What would y'all add to that, if anything?
One thing I would add, because see, our kids are bigger. We have 14-year-old and 12-year-olds. So if we get heated, and even let's say if we do make up, one thing that Gavino and I were different in how we were raised, as when our parents would always tell you stay in a child's place. You know, there are certain things that you would ask your parents. They would tell you in a heartbeat, will stay in a child's place. We don't tend to do that to them. You know, they are growing. We are their teachers. And so if they don't ask, then who will they ask? Right. So there's been times where the conversations get heated. And even if we've made up, the kids may come around a little later and they'd be like, well, what happened? And we are honest in the place of a child. You know, it's not that, you know, you turn it, you tell them in the sense of a 14 and 12-year-old. It's not that we're sitting here having grown adult conversations with them, but
in a way that they can understand.
In a way that they can understand, to say, well, I was mad at your dad because of X, Y, and Z. And they've even chimed in and they'll be like, well, Mom, I don't know. I think I'm with Dad on this one. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what? You know, like I was wrong.
Yeah, I think around the corner, I'm like,
right? It's a tool for them to be able to learn. And then the other one, because I think we spent most time on the rules, but one of the big rules is to keep it between you. You know, don't involve other people in your relationships. Like, you know, everybody may need somebody to vent to or whatever, but just make sure that person is somebody that you can trust, somebody that has, you know, the best intentions, that's listening to you with love. If my sister calls me and says, you know, I'm upset about this, she knows I'm not about to go in on him. That's my brother. I love him. I'm not, you know, I wouldn't do that. I'm just literally going to listen and offer support. And so just make sure that you keep it. And that doesn't even happen often, you know, like that has happened maybe a handful of times. And I've known him since I was 16 years old. And the same for me, you know. And so I just think that it's very important. Don't be calling to be like, yeah, you know, my sister gonna agree with me. Watch. And then you call and put your sister on speakerphone and be like, tell Chris he don't know what he's talking about. Like that, it never goes well. And when you involve other people, y'all might make up and then everybody else still don't like him for whatever he said or did, or you know, whatever situation y'all are dealing with. So it's just best to keep people out of your relationship. The next one that I have is to focus on one issue, whatever it is that y'all are fighting over. So if y'all start talking about a snow cone, don't go back to 6 months before when this other thing happened, and then the year before when this other thing happened. Focus on what's at hand and resolve that issue. Because if you just keep piling up stuff, you're just making the situation harder. And if you already addressed that and closed that, you can't reopen it just because it's in the heat of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Anything?
Nah.
Anything?
Yeah, I want to add one of the main things and one of the big things that I have learned um, coming into the manhood or whatnot, just through the years, is to listen. Sometimes all the spouse is wanting from you to do is just listen. Just listen. You know, if you're in a heated of argument, you can probably tone the argument down by just listening. Like close your mouth and literally just use your ears and listen. Or even after a long day's work, like my wife, sometimes she'll come home stressed out from work, and I ask her how's work going, and it's like I just unscrewed a can of whoop ale on me, you know, because it just like wham, you know. And I just listen though. I just listen because sometimes people just need an ear. They don't need suggestions on what to do.
Right.
You know, they just need to be heard. So
Right.
I think, you know, listening as a spouse, whether it's man or woman, I think that's a good thing to add on to that too. Is just, you know, listen sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that
I would say one thing I find to that point, one thing I find very beneficial in like our conflict resolution is like when I'm listening, I'm not listening to like have a comeback or a response or rebuttal.
Yeah.
Like I'm genuinely listening to
Exactly.
kind of understand.
Right.
and for us too, I think the biggest game changer for us and something that we, you know, the tool that we teach to other people is you are not even listening to agree or disagree. Because one thing that you realize when you get the tools down is that everybody's feelings are valid all the time, because that's what they feel in that moment. And so if you're sitting there and you're like, you know, I don't agree with that because, and then you try to tear down what they just told you have to understand that their perspective is their perspective and their feelings are valid. And so even if you're like, how did you come up with this? Like I just told y'all all the hula hoops my mind went through when he was telling me about the snow cone. He didn't know that, but you know, now he would listen to that and maybe not agree, but he's not going to say like, oh, I don't agree. He's literally just going to listen and then acknowledge and validate. And so to add to what Gavino was saying, that those are the three biggest tips that we can give is listen, acknowledge what they said. If you got to repeat it back to them to say, let me make sure that I'm understanding, because I see that you're upset and I want to make sure that I'm understanding this. You're acknowledging what they just said to you. And then when you validate, it's you letting them know essentially that they're not crazy. Right. And so it's like, I listened to you, I acknowledge what you said back, and you say, you know what? I understand your perspective. Not that I agree, not that, you know, we may not have to work some stuff out, but just that I understand in this moment, this is what you were feeling. And so I want to let you know that I hear you and I'm, you know, you validate that. So I think, but like Avino said, listening is the first step. The next one that I have is taking a time out if things get heated. But the trick to that is you have to agree to the timeout. You know, you talk to a lot of couples where somebody will hang up the phone if y'all are back in the dating stage, or people that just get up and walk out while the other person's still talking because they're so upset. If you need a timeout, that's understandable. The other partner should respect the fact that somebody asked for a timeout, and you have to agree to it. So if Anika's pouring her heart out to you and you're like, man, you know what, I had enough of this, and you just walk out, what you just told her is that you don't care and that you're willing to abandon her and jump ship if things get tough. Like the message that you just sent, and in your mind, what is just you trying to take a break, like you just sent a message that you weren't intending to send, that you were literally abandoning her in the heat of the moment. And so it's better to get acknowledgement to say like, hey, you know what, this is getting heated and I need to take a break. So I'm going to go, and you set a time and you actually come back to talk about it. Don't just let it, you know, build up and become the elephant in the room. set like, I need 15 minutes. I'm gonna go outside and go for a walk. I'll be back, and then we can sit at the table and we can talk.
Yeah.
And then I have be open, be honest, and be vulnerable. Because that's our favorite word. You can't have healthy communication and get to that next level if you're not willing to be vulnerable. If you're not willing to tell your partner that, for me, even if when I say like, I don't like people telling me what to do, Chris understands because he knows my history, he knows my childhood, he knows everything. He understands where that comes from because I've been able to share it with him. And so it's like, now, if I see him acting a certain way, I know that it is coming from somewhere because he is open enough with me to share. Maybe it's from a childhood experience. Maybe it's from, something that happened in your life that wasn't so favorable that you've built up a defense mechanism for. He's open enough and vulnerable enough to share those experiences with me so that I understand, like, oh, I get why this triggered him, or I get why this thing that seems so regular to me is just perceived totally different from him. And Gavino, you and I had this conversation not too long ago where we talked about, especially for men, for women to understand that vulnerability is a two-way street.
Right.
That we can't ask our men to be vulnerable with us if we're not going to hold that space for them, or if we're just going to get mad the next week and then throw it up in his face that he peed in the bed until he was 12, or whatever. You gonna do that, and neither one of them did that, y'all. I'm not saying that, but just for example, if that's the issue, and the next a week later you like, that's why you peed in the bed till you was 12. It's like, okay,
yeah,
he ain't never gonna tell you nothing else.
Nothing.
So. The next one that I have is to leave. If you're married, leave the D word out of the conversation always. Like, don't ever say that, and if you say it, you better mean it. Like, if you get so heated to the point where you're like, I want a divorce, and you just saying that because you're mad and you think you're going to be able to apologize for it the next day. I think to Nikki's point that, the stuff that we heard when we were little, stay in the child's place. This is one for me that I really, that I don't like, but I can't remember what I was about to say. But the point is to leave divorce off the table. Oh, this is what I was thinking about. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt. That's a lie. That's one of the biggest lies. Yes, that's the biggest lie ever told. We don't ever tell our kids that. Even sometimes you do want to be like, it's fine, it's just words. Like, why are you crying? You understand that the words have impact. And so if you get mad at your partner and you're like, I want a divorce, all bets are off. And like, how am I ever supposed to trust that we can work through hard times if every time you get mad at me, you tell me you want a divorce or you leave? And so we both lawyers too. And so it's like, if you say you want a divorce, one of us gonna draft the papers that night. Right. So don't say it. And I just think that's
email in the morning, all right?
Right. You're gonna get served at work in front of your coworkers. Bam. But just leave it off the table. If you're not married and you're just dating, just being like, oh, I don't want to be with you no more, and then calling them back the next hour to be like, I was just playing. Like, understand that's very hurtful. And you can't build a solid foundation if you keep cracking it by telling them that you don't want to be there. Commitment is everything. And if I'm not sure you're committed, what are we doing all this work for?
Right.
And then the next one that I have is understanding that it is you versus the problem, like you two versus the problem, and not you two versus each other. Because you see some couples that it's literally like a war and all bets are off and they are going at it. And you're like, no, it's you two put your heads together to address the problem instead of you two just butting heads while the problem is sitting over there and y'all fighting so much y'all can't even pay attention to it. And then I said, when it's over, it's over. I think I might have covered this already, but once you come to an understanding about it, both people have been heard, y'all have agreed to this is the resolution, that's it, that it's over. You can't 4 years later just be like, you know what, I really wasn't over that, and so we need to talk about it again. You give each other space that sometimes you may think of another point, and it's always, we talk about everything so we can talk about it again. I'm not saying that, but like, you can't reopen and rehash old issues.
Right.
And then I have apologize, and something that we learned too was sometimes you're apologizing for the mess that it ended up creating, even if you're not apologizing for the initial action. So for example, in the snow cone situation, I can take accountability for the fact that I didn't talk to him for 12 hours. even though I don't think there was anything wrong with the initial situation. And so sometimes you apologize and you're like, I apologize that this turned into all of this, because
Right.
we're better than that.
Or like for me in that situation is like, you know, how it, I guess me making that suggestion, my intent wasn't to make you mad, but the fact that it actually did make you feel, it essentially hurt your feelings or made you mad, you know, I'm apologizing for that.
Right.
And that's what we're, you know, trying to address.
Right. And then the last one, and I'm gonna toss it over to y'all to see if y'all have anything to add. The last one that we have is get help when you need it. If it's a relationship coach, if it's a therapist, whatever it is, if sometimes it's just stress management. Like Avino said, if you're dealing with a lot at work and you're coming home and you're blowing up on your boo all the time, you know, you need to get help for yourself and for your stress management. Or if it's as a couple, there's this issue that you guys just cannot, you've tried everything and you cannot see eye to eye on it. Another thing that we leaving in the past is the idea that there's something wrong with going to go get help, that there's something wrong with going to therapy, that there's something wrong with working with a life coach. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everybody needs help, everybody. And so don't be afraid to go get it if you need it. So with that, you guys are the senior couple here. Do y'all have any other tips?
No, those were all good. I say that after being together with a person for so long, you use those tips. And I've always said that life is adaptable. So the tips remain the same, but you understand that you change and you grow and you adapt in your relationship over the years. And so the foundation, which you have said many times, the foundation is what's laid. But how we resolve this conflict, we use these tools. But like I say, we're adaptable. Because there are some ways we don't even argue the same. You don't argue the same then as we do now, because for one, the argument, if we're having an argument, it's an issue that is big enough, because the little small stuff, you didn't put the toothpaste on top of the top of the toothpaste. You didn't let the seat down. Like you learn to choose your battles wisely, and so that keeps you from bickering. I don't know if you ever met somebody who just bickers all the time. And I often think you guys, I don't understand how you have the energy or the time to bicker over something so little, but that goes back to say that there is an underlying problem there. And so you leaving off the top to the toothpaste, that's not the actual problem. There is something there as to why you have to be bickering so much.
And Nikki, I'll say this because I've had this conversation with many men before, that a lot of guys don't understand that. And so if you come home and she's fussing at you about the dishes and you like, have y'all seen The Breakup? That scene where Vaughn was like, why would I want to do dishes? Like, he wasn't understanding that it wasn't about dishes. She felt unsupported. She felt like you didn't care about her. And so it's usually not the toothpaste. It's not the dishes. It's not that it's food on a baby's face. The problem is she feels like you were not supportive. And so typically when someone is bickering like that, it's because there's something else going on that they're missing, because they're so, again, you focused on each other instead of focused on the problem, where y'all are bickering over the top to the toothpaste when the issue may just be she just cleaned off the counter and you don't ever help her clean up. And so now, and so it's usually a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, man. One thing too is that means you have to be intentional with what you say. You cannot assume that as long as you and Chris have been together, that he's a mind reader. Gavino, he knows me like the back of his hand, but I still have to be intentional in what I say, and I can't assume that he knows what's in my brain. He has to do the same too. He cannot assume, because sometimes I'm like, oh, that ain't what you. Oh, I thought you were talking. I thought, oh, okay, well, no, I'm listening, because you have to be intentional in what you say, and you have to assume that they just cannot read your brain. Say what you mean what you say.
Right. And an advanced tip from that is not just that you didn't say it, but even when you say it, understanding that what you said and what they heard could be very different. Yeah. Like what you intended to convey to me is not what I got out of that. And so even if you are, one, like she said, people are not mind readers. And so the whole silent treatment and expecting people to guess what's wrong with you,
that actually makes it worse.
That makes it worse. So we're going to throw that out. And two, even when you communicate things in the best possible way in your mind, he doesn't think like I do. And so what I said may not have been received in the way that I intended it to. And so you just keep talking about it until you come to a common understanding. So with all of those tips being
I
said,
think you gonna say something.
oh, you have one?
Yeah, I was trying to get a few words in, if y'all don't mind.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, going back to what you're saying about verbal abuse, about sticks and stones can break my bones, but words may never hurt me. But verbal abuse is a very strong form of abuse. It
Yes.
just lasts forever, like literally forever, because the way your mind works, it's like a hard drive. So sometimes those physical pains you go through, they heal. You may have a scar, and you have a scar to remember. Oh yeah, that happened. But when you have it in your mind,
Right.
it is etched in your mind forever. So be careful what you say to your spouse and to your children, vice versa, And also, when you enter in a marriage, it's more like, I've heard this before about they were referring to life itself in general. It's not, life is a marathon, it's not a quick sprint, right? And it's the same thing with marriage. You're in a marriage and it's a marathon. You're in it for the long haul. It's not a quick sprint. It's not a 40-yard dash. And if you think it's a 40-yard dash, you got a big surprise waiting for you. It's a marathon. You're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna have to catch your second wind. You're gonna have everything to do to get through this marathon. And again, to go off of what both of y'all were saying about, I like your tips. Your tips are great, like very, very well thought out tips. Also, one thing I want to say is that what may work for you may not work for us, and what may work for us may not work for you guys, because just like you had just said, Chris doesn't think like you, right? And I don't think like Anika, and she don't think like me, and you don't think like Chris. So it's good to learn your spouse and what will work for them, because I'm just going to use this as an example. Like, we have an arsenal of tools, right? Or weapons. Like, I have a satchel of weapons here. Anika has a satchel of weapons, and she's going to pull out her weapons or her useful tools on me during a dispute or an argument, or just throughout the day. What's going to work on him today? What's not going to work on him today? Or what's going to work on Anika today? Or what will not work on Anika today? Because you gotta know your spouse, and I guess that's through the years of being together, through the years of being married, you learn one another.
So one thing that's funny that Chris and I started doing, that we actually learned from another couple. I think like what Nikki said in terms of being adaptable is great. But one thing that we do on those days when you can't really tell is we have a code word that we say to each other. And I'll ask him, are you the bug? Are you the windshield? And we laugh about it because it's funny to us. And so if he's kind of in a mood, one, it makes him laugh. And then two, he's able to say, today I'm the bug. And I know that means he ain't got time for this right now. I need to come back later. Or if he says, I'm the windshield, I know, okay, cool. Like, he's open to hear, because he knows that this is going to be something serious. So those are the tips that we have for you guys today. Just real quick, can anybody, we can just do one person, want to talk about what's motivating them this week or motivating them about this particular topic? Yes, ma'am. Volunteer down front in the blue shirt.
Me, I would like to go.
Yeah.
Yesterday was Halloween. And so this is a difficult time for everybody, and we're not in times like we've ever been in before. And so it was inspiring. We didn't do a lot for Halloween when normally we do. We kind of get together with the family, the kids dress up. We have our 12-year-old. So our 14-year-old, I think he quit dressing up 2-3 years ago. But our 12-year-old, she gets really into it. So we went and got her a costume and was just going to sit in the house with costumes on, but they wanted to give out candy. And so we masked up. We even let them mask up and kind of walk a couple of streets in the neighborhood. But we had little trick-or-treaters come by and little kids, and everybody's in their mask and stuff. And, as a parent in a time like this, when I think about Halloween, I think about you and I going trick-or-treating in our costumes, and we would come home and dump out all our candy and, let mom go through it and then get it. And so it was inspiring that all you parents out there that's trying to keep a sense of normalcy in a time where it just is not normal. It's inspiring. You all are doing a good job. Is it normal? Absolutely not. Will they remember all the minute details? Absolutely not. But they came over, went trick-or-treating, we gave out candy, and although it wasn't our normal Halloween, it was a good one.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we'd all agree with that. That's a great one. So Thank you guys for tuning into this video. I hope you all learned something from the tips that we shared. Couples, we are here with you. We know that being in quarantine and going through a pandemic, kids and work and all of these things are piling up, and it's a lot. But just make sure to take care of your relationships, to take care of each other, to take care of yourselves. And we will be back again next week with another video for you guys. Bye.